Got some tissue?
Catch.
Gonna also need some tunes.
Sure thing.
Gundam has come a long way since the late 70s, not just visually or in terms of trends, but the musical treatment every entry receives has become far more specialized for the different stories creators want to tell. But the amazing thing about Gundam Thunderbolt's music is that, despite sounding nothing like anything we've ever heard before in the franchise, it's able to return the series to its thematic roots.
A Gundam! You're no match for a Gundam!
It's a Gundam?
You damn Gundam!
Damn you, Gundam!
Free Jazz is the perfect soundtrack for Thunderbolt.
Free Jazz is the perfect soundtrack in the Thunderbolt.
Taking place in the wreckage of a space colony, the stimulation this kind of music provides is what helps the protagonist, E.O. Fleming, navigate the merciless onslaught of debris. In my opinion, free jazz can best be defined as a generally unorthodox approach to pre-established jazz conventions, and in this series that comes across through the abandonment of functional chord changes, consistent rhythmic meters, and even the idea that every part is playing in the same tempo. When it comes to the anarchic way E.O. dodges free-floating obstacles, the instinctive approach to rhythm is central to why he has such an affinity for this music.
When you hear jazz, it'll be your exit music.
The polyrhythms in particular allow him to keep a strong sense of pulse, even though the groupings and accents change on a dime so frequently.
I got you now!
Then there's the harmonic content, which is also kept up in the air, never settling into a home key, yet never feeling like it's in a midway stasis. There's a surprising amount of character among these clusters of dissonance, much of which is owed to the composer and saxophonist of the series, Naruyoshi Kikuchi. His extensive experience with this kind of jazz was what brought the concept to life from the silence of the original manga, though it's important to note that these particular tracks by him aren't necessarily an all-encompassing representation of what free jazz is. While Kikuchi isn't widely known to many anime fans, outside maybe his performances on the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack, you might be familiar with his musical tendencies based on the other work he's done. His use of sustained organ dissonances in The Woman Called Fujiko Mine created a sort of emotional limbo associated with the titular character. And going back even further, remember Mid-Valley the Horn Freak from Trigun? The guy who could cause damage with the sound waves from his saxophone? That was Kikuchi. And in Thunderbolt, his signature sound is as dirty as it's ever been. Free jazz puts a heavy focus on individual performers after all, with a drive to push the technical limits not just of the music's composition, but sometimes the instruments themselves. The wind instruments almost reach an electronic kind of sound with how fast and harsh they can distort their tone color. Going purely off what I've mentioned so far, it might be hard to dissociate Kikuchi's compositional personality with the idea of harshness, whether that's in terms of harmonic writing, instrumental timbre, or the cascading rhythms. And in this series, it offers a take on the nihilism of war that's definitely interesting, but two-dimensional at best on its own. However, this isn't the only kind of music being weaponized in this series. While free jazz comes from esoteric individualism, pop ballads and easy listening are made more powerful by the number of potential voices who can sing it. Bjork once described pop as similar to folk music in that regard, and a contrast between it and free jazz can be seen in the opposing styles of our two male leads. While Eel thrives on the challenge of navigating a dangerous battlefield with split-second reflexes, Daryl sits in place above as a sniper, looking for clean, uninterrupted paths to victory.
The sniper doesn't need mobility. I just shoot down any prey caught in our net like always, and this'll get it done.
This kind of music is written with the goal of being remembered through simplicity, from the harmonic satisfaction to the lyrical melodies and catchy lyrics. Compared to EO's free jazz, which is all about alertness and technical dexterity, what Daryl understands music as is something more dreamlike and timeless, less of a process and more of a destination.
Share from our heart, or the mornings where that they
Last month, I did a video on In This Corner of the World, a film that deliberately kept war in the periphery, and had a score that put focus on the perspectives of ordinary people from that era. The idea was that the music would represent their ability to live on, while the war itself mostly played out without accompaniment. And I suppose Thunderbolt could be seen as expressing a similar sentiment, but with the exact opposite approach. While both pop and jazz fill the runtime in a variety of scenes, music never serves to represent the inner, emotional state of its characters, because quite frankly, the war doesn't care about that. The abundance of diegetic musical cues belies an obsession purely with the external conflict, and all that's left in the silence is the sheer hollowness that only something as inhumane as war could warrant. As a result, the remains of the wrecked colony the series is set in takes on a whole new meaning, as the characters are essentially fighting in the burial site of their own home. This constant reminder of the ordinary being distorted is a reality all too true for the pilots of the Zeonic Living Dead squad. Their fallen comrades and loss of limbs make them feel less and less human, and more like lab rats at the whims of their science team. However, at the heart of this inhumane situation is the goal of creating a weapon to surpass EO's Gundam. And that weapon finally comes to fruition with Daryl, who after losing 3 of his limbs in battle, willingly sacrifices his last one in order to be compatible with the control system. And so by the time the final battle comes around, both ace pilots have completely given themselves over to their weapons. While EO considers the free jazz an extension of his being that connects him to his Gundam, Daryl literally becomes one with the Psycho Zaku. However, despite the disturbing nature of that prospect, he himself experienced a great deal of nostalgia from plugging himself directly into a mobile suit. By using his childhood memories of when he could use his legs ably, he and the other Zeon soldiers end up projecting their past onto a hopeful future. When he imagines what he's fighting for, he sees himself and Carla on the same beach that he ran on as a child, in the exact same idyllic bliss. The memorability inherent to Pop is what allows him to weaponize his nostalgic memories. But even that hope is treated with an equal amount of cynicism by the narrative, as it can technically be taken as ignorance or escapism from the hard truth of the battle.
Hell of a rush, isn't it? Even though we may curse this war, we become more and more obsessed with it. There's no escape.
The reason EO is the main character is because he's one of the only people willing to see the war for what it really is, up close and personal. He doesn't believe in the merit of his military position or the value of his so-called comrades.
Some brotherhood.
The spontaneous rhythmic flow of free jazz is all about technical innovation, eventually pushing the boundary between music and noise. It sounds intense, but so is the fact that this mobile suit arms race is pushing the boundaries between humanity and disposable trash. It might be a bit hackneyed to assume that entire genres or movements can be summed up in a few tracks, but this is a story more about the people who listen to music rather than the music itself. Perhaps it could be seen as a cautionary tale about the meaning music holds for us, and what happens when we try to turn these fleeting experiences into tools, whether it's something to keep yourself trapped in the present, or to convince others of an impossible concept of victory. Gundam Thunderbolt's ability to contextualize particular styles and forms of music is completely in touch with the disenfranchising side of armed combat, suggesting that if people let their tools control them, then no war will ever truly be won. Thank you again for watching, guys. And if you're seeing this on the day that it goes up, the Gundam Thunderbolt composer Naruyoshi Kikuchi is actually going to be performing some of this music in concert at Anime NYC this year. That's going to be on Sunday the 19th of November, later this week. It's going to feature some seriously talented musicians, and you'll also be able to see the US premiere of the second compilation film, Bandit Flower. I obviously won't be there because, you know, I live in Australia. But if you like what you heard in this video, then I'd highly recommend going.